A new study graded retirement systems around the world, and it says the U.S. deserves no higher than a C+. The research says one of the biggest reasons is Social Security's looming solvency crisis, which is projected to hit as early as 2033, possibly triggering big cuts in benefits. With that in mind, Nolan, how are you guys helping clients plan around this for the future so that their retirement, doesn't get hit with a failing grade?
Well, it's pretty scary. I mean, this is a topic that's been around for a long time with the discussion of Social Security and the insolvency that they have. That date keeps getting closer and closer. So if we look at the website usdebtclock.org, that's a good website to go and take a look at real time, what some of the financial health of this country is. First of all, you look at our national debt, $33 trillion. We blew through that in a massive amount of time. The numbers are dramatically going up. The government is spending 124% of the federal debt to our GDP ratio. We were $1 trillion, almost $2 trillion in excess spending last year than what our country brought in. And then on top of that, you look at some of these unfunded liabilities. So we can talk about, the Medicare unfunded liability is $40 trillion. But the Social Security unfunded liability, according to, again, usdebtclock.org, is currently $26 trillion. And in fact, if you look at one of the publications that comes out directly from the Social Security Administration, is they talk about how the fact in 10 years from now, they're expected to only be able to pay about 78% on the dollar for Social Security benefits. And what we've done is we started to have this conversation with our clients. One of the ways that we can have the conversation with the client is we can take a look at in their retirement plan. What we do is we can stress test the plan and do an analysis that say, what is the impact of Social Security? And if it does reduce its benefits, how would that impact the success of your plan? So we recently met with this individual, Kimberly. She's single, and she's a couple of years till retirement, but it's pretty close that she's finalizing her plans. And when we ran the analysis, and what we looked at is if everything continued on, her probability of success was a little over 90%. So on the surface, I think Kimberly would probably feel pretty comfortable and confident about moving into retirement time. Mm-hmm. But then what we did is we stress test the plan, and we said, well, what if the government does what they say they're going to do? Now, I know they don't do what they say they're going to do, but what if they do what they say they're going to do in writing, which is reduced her benefits by 20%? Her probability of success went down from 90% to 50%.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's like, okay, now retirement success was a coin toss. And the reason being is because Social Security, like for most retirees, was a big portion of her overall retirement. It was one of the cornerstones. So she's kind of relying upon that guarantee that be there forever. But that's not what the government's saying. Now, as hard as it was, the nice thing about that is it allows us to start making some decisions today to plan for what if that does happen. So in terms of military, when I served in the Marine Corps, we were always taught to have a plan B. And so in this case, it's a matter of developing that plan B and taking a look for that says, if this scenario happens, what are the options and what are the strategies that are available to do that? So a couple of examples is you could set aside a bucket of money. And in this particular bucket of money, what you could do is you could utilize it as what I would refer to as a pay raise account. So in the event that the Social Security drops in the future, you could turn this pay raise bucket of money on, and it could help fill the gap. There's also certain insurance products that are out there today that will offer higher income in the future by having like an income rider. Annuities are famous for having income riders. So you could take a chunk of money, you could set aside in like an annuity account, and you could figure out what that 20% gap needs to be and put enough money in there that is able to fund that gap if that happens. And in fact, one of the insurance companies that we work with here is the first company that I'm aware of in the industry that also offer some additional benefits as far as their riders, addressing the specific fact that if Social Security is reduced in the future, they have a benefit on their contract that will help build the gap. When we break this down even further, I've been doing a lot of Social Security classes here and across the U.S. at other satellite locations, and I ask people in the question about that, and I ask them, well, who's going to be impacted by this? And I think there could be a couple of different scenarios. So are you the target of a Social Security cut in the future? One, we could look at, who's going to get cut? Well, what you could say is that for younger people like myself, I'm 47, so I don't plan on getting Social Security for a long time. It's fair to say that I might have to work longer or get less Social Security in the future because I have plenty of time to plan for that. Mm-hmm. But when we look at people that are close to or in retirement time, and we start thinking about who could and most likely be impacted, first of all, higher income earners. So you'd have to develop what is the definition that the government determines wealthy. And there's a couple of ways, and there's a couple of formulas that are already out there that determine what does the government consider wealthy. First of all, you could go back to COVID. And in COVID, those individuals that made more than $75,000 of household income did not get COVID stimulus checks. So, the question is if your income is over that, will you fall under the definition of wealthy and not need to get as much Social Security? You could be bigger impacted. Well, we can also look at Social Security itself. And if you're an individual and you file a joint return and you and your spouse have combined provisional income of more than $32,000, you could pay taxes on up to 85% of your benefits. So if your income levels are over that, maybe you're more at risk than somebody who's just living on Social Security. Maybe they're a little less risk. How about asset test? They could look at the amount of assets that they have, and they could say, well, you've saved and accumulated $1 million nest egg. You have enough money. You don't need to do that, and you can afford to take less in that scenario. So if you have large amount of assets, to me, it even further justifies you might want to take and use some of your investment assets in the early years, thus delaying Social Security benefits to get a higher benefit, because under an asset test, if you delay using those assets, it could be one of those areas that comes at risk. So we can use kind of history as a guideline. In fact, if you want to know how much of your Social Security is at risk, we have a very unique calculator, and we have a way to show you how it can be impacted. So if you want to find out what would be the impact and what will Social Security cuts look like, give our office a call, ask for the Social Security risk score, and we'll give you that report and get that put together for you.
Because it's better to go ahead and plan for it for whatever may come down the line. As we do know, the government has a way of kicking the can down the road as long as possible. So if they're saying 2033 is really the cutoff, we probably won't hear anything about it until 2032 or so. But you want to go and have a plan in place, and that is where sitting down and speaking with the team at America's Retirement Headquarters can be pivotal, if not critical, when it comes to planning for the longevity of your retirement. That Social Security risk score available to you. Just give a call, 419-794-3030. You can also go to the website, arhq.com.